in Masechet Kamma is Daf Kufchet 108, and we are 3 lines from the bottom. Boy Roim Bar Kamma at the bottom of Kuf Zayin Amud Bet. Just a reminder, we'll get to this many times more today, of course, that there are several different levels of responsibility. Good morning, Rosa. That we talk about with the ganav. And one of them, of course, is the simple one, where a person steals something, they're caught, they're found, they're ganav. Torah says you pay kefel. If you slaughter the animal, you pay arba v'chamisha, depending on the type of animal. That's straightforward. The other case, which is what we've been discussing, is to'en ta'anat ganav, right? Where you are a shomer, you've been given an object to watch. At the end of your watching period, you claim that it is lost. It's either stolen or lost, aveda, ganav. And so then you have an opportunity to either swear that has happened, in which case you'd be patur, or to pay it back, right? Some people don't want to make a shvua, or they for whatever reason, right? Even if they think it's true, then they pay it back. There, the Gemara, the pasuk talks about a very interesting thing, where if you then swear that you didn't, that let's say you swear you didn't do it, you swear that you lost it, and it turns out you stole it, and then you admit that you lied about it, you then pay back a keren, the principal, a chomesh, an extra fifth or quarter really, and an asham. You bring an asham gzelot, right? An asham for stealing. But that's only if you swear falsely, right? If you're found out, if you just walk in the next day and say, I'm sorry, I did this, you just pay back the principal. We had an interesting halacha several times already that you never pay a chomesh and kefal for the same thing. And that's going to form the first half of today's daf, to be honest with you, that discussion. That if you pay a chomesh, which is what you pay for swearing falsely and then admitting, you don't, if you're paying kefal, you don't also pay a chomesh. Okay, so meaning if witnesses come, and so a man went, or a woman, right, stole something, it was a shomer, swore that it was stolen. Then it turned out that witnesses came and said, no, it wasn't stolen. The person stole it themselves. So then you pay kefal. If you after that come to court and say, I'm really sorry, I lied, I made a mistake, and I did it, and I'm wrong, you might bring an asham, we discussed that separately, but you don't bring a chomesh because you're already paying a kefal. So that's the halacha. Now ask Rami Bar Chama today, we'll see why he's asking.
We had a situation yesterday where we changed the idea of Aveda to Ganav, and he still didn't pay kefal.
Right. So that's exactly why we're getting to this today, because what I just told you is true about toin ta'anat ganav. If you say that it was lost instead of saying it was stolen, right? If you're toin ta'anat avad, so you're a shomer and you say this was lost and you swear it was lost, and then witnesses come and say you're a liar, it wasn't lost, it's sitting in your basement, then you don't pay a chomesh and you don't pay kefal.
Why
right?
not?
Because you didn't essentially say so. Because now, if you did an act to steal it, it might be different. But assuming you didn't do an act to steal it, that is you have to pay, but you don't pay a chomesh, you don't pay kefil because it wasn't a case of gzela. Okay, so we're going to discuss that more today. But that's the halacha of chomesh, which is only by geneva, not by lost. Loss is a little more complicated. We'll get into it, actually. You sometimes do pay kefil, actually, but let's see. So, boy, Rami Bar Chama. So, ask Rami Bar Chama today, 3 lines from the bottom. Mamon hamechayvo kefil potro min hachomesh. Do we say that whenever you're paying kefil for something that you were supposed to be watching, you then don't pay a chomesh? Is it because the mamon, the actual money, the cow, let's say, if you're paying back kefil for the cow, you don't pay a chomesh? Or, Odilma, is the reason you don't pay chomesh because it's a shvuah? Is it that if you swear, and when you swear, for that swearing falsely, you have to pay a kefel? You don't pay a chomesh for that swearing falsely. Meaning, is it related to the stealing the object, or is it related to the shavua? I'm asking her, why would that matter? Because they're connected, right? Hechidami, where would it make an implication? And this is where we get to the case we had yesterday, Kigon, where you basically made 2 claims about the same object, right? So we were ta'anat ganav. The shomer says, sorry, I don't have your cow, it was stolen. And the owner says to you, well, I want you to swear about that, v'nishpa. And you swear, and of course you're lying at this point. You swear falsely that it was stolen. If witnesses are going to come later, which they will, you'll then have to pay kefel and not a chomish. Okay. But then, as we had yesterday, you are chazar v'ta'an tanat avad. You then claim, no, it wasn't stolen. It was lost, right? I yesterday came and said it was stolen on Saturday. I made a big mistake. It was lost on Sunday, right? And again, nishba, you swear that it was lost, that you looked for it, you couldn't find it anywhere. And then, ba'u edim akamaita, the top of Daf Kufchet, witnesses come and say that the first thing you said was false, meaning on Saturday, when you were Shabbos, when you said it was stolen, it was sitting in your basement. So you're a liar. And then, but it doesn't tell you if it was lost on Sunday or not. It might still have been lost, but then you are hodeh, that's right. Then you admit, okay, I give up. This whole thing was a hoax. I really wanted to keep the cow. I love this cow. And in fact, I lied when I said it was lost. So now, in theory,
Stolen. You said
no,
stolen.
the second, so again, the first you said it was stolen and you swore about that. Then you said it was lost and you swore about that. The Adim come and say that you're a liar about the stolen part. That when you said it was stolen on Friday, I'll pick, in fact, it was sitting in your house. And that would be Mechayiv you Kefa, right? Then you admit that, in fact, when you said that it was lost on Sunday, you were also lying and it's still sitting in your basement. Usually for that, you even if witnesses that came, you wouldn't be chayav kefa, but you would be chayav. Sorry, I said this before. You would be chayav the chomesh for that, right? So the question is, v'hodeh batraita, my, do you say mamon hamechayvo kefa potrom min chomesh, that whenever you have to pay double for this object, for this cow, which you do in this case because you lied about it being stolen and witnesses then came, you're chayav le'ali kfela. You have to pay kefil for this. So therefore, you should be putter for the chomesh for the second lie that you said. O Dilma, it's the shvua mechayvo kefil patruto min chomesh. And the shvua you made that it was stolen, that shvua in the end was a lie. You were found out to be lying. You have to pay kefil, so you don't pay chomesh for that shvua. But the second shvua you made that it was stolen, in fact, maybe you do pay chomesh for that shvua. And so in the end, you might pay the principal a kefil for the first lie and chomesh for the second lie. So what's the halacha? Hashvua batraita, the second shvua that you made about that it being lost, you can never be chayv kefil for that because you're not chayv kefil when you claim it was lost. You're only chayv kefil if you claim it was stolen to chayv a chumsha. So maybe there you are chayv a chumash. So that was the question that he had, which is, again, it seems like a very good question to ask, academically. In this very unusual case, it would be practical, but it's really more than an academic question. So Amar Rava, says Rava, well, I'm going to prove it to you from the following Breita. Tashma. We had a Breita 2 days ago where, this is a very interesting case. Again, we add another aspect to this, where there's no person who's required to make a shvuah. Because what's the case? We're 7 lines from the top. Amar le'echad min hashuk. A person loses their cow, okay? I'm gonna use a car. A car's a little bit easier in all the cases, but it's the same meaning, right? Person's car is missing from his garage. He hears that Ruvain stole his car. He walks through the street and he goes to Ruvain. I heard you stole my car. Where's my car? Now, Ruvain, he never gave his car to Ruvain to watch. It's not like Ruvain's a shomer. So Ruvain can look at him and say, I don't know who you are. Why are you talking to me? If you have a claim against me, come to court. But Amar le'echad min hashuk, you say to some random person, not random, it's someone in the street, Hechan shori sheganafta. Where's my car that you stole? Where's my shor that you stole? Who am I? And this guy looks at you and says, Lo ganafti, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't steal anything from you. So the first person who came says, Mashpiacha ani, will you swear that you didn't steal it? Amar Amen. He says, yep, I swear I didn't steal your cow. Okay. And of course, he did steal the cow. And Edim come and they say, wait a second, we know that Ruvain stole the cow. So says the Braita, Mishalim Tashlume Kefa. You got to pay kefa. This is like anyone else who steals anything, right? You steal something, you deny you stole it. You didn't have to deny it. Witnesses come, you pay kefa. Okay, so far, nothing innovative. But continues the Braita, V'im hodem me'atzmo. But if Ruvain, who denied that he stole it, then comes to the court and says, I feel terribly guilty about this. In fact, I did steal this car. Then, Mishalim Karen v'chomesh v'asham. You pay a Karen, you pay a chomesh, the fifth, and you pay an asham. Now, the implication is that it's either or. It's either witnesses or you admit. But if witnesses came first and then you admitted second, you would be chayiv kefel and not chayiv the chomesh. Ask the Gemara, "V'ahacha edim hu d'mechayva lekfela." In this case, it's not the shvua that's mechayiv you kefel, because you stole this thing, and the reason you pay kefel is because witnesses came and said you stole it. If you had never made the shvua, you would still be a chayiv kefel, right? If you make the shvua, you're also chayiv kefel. Unlike a shomer, in a shomer's case, if you don't make the shvua, you never pay kefel. Because in the shomer's case, if you come and say it was stolen, and the guy says make a shvua, and you say, I'd rather not make a shvua, and then witnesses come and say he's lying, he has it in his basement, you don't pay kefel, you pay one, because you basically were given it to you under good circumstances. You're a shomer. So in the shomer's case, the shvua is what makes you a ganav and is mechayiv you kefil. In this case, there's no shomer. So the shvua itself is not what's mechayiv you kefil, right? Hahacha, it's the edim who de mechayiv kefila. But if you're hodeh me'atzmo in, if you admit first that you stole it, then you would pay a chomesh. But aval hodeh achar edim lo. The implication is that if you admit after the edim came, you wouldn't pay a chomesh, even though you could say that the edim are mechayiv you kefil and the shvua is what's mechayiv you chomesh. So what you see from here is that even though there are two sources for your responsibility of kefil and chomesh, you don't ever have both, even though they come from two places. If you say it's only when the shvua is mechayiv you kefil that you're pater from chomesh, amai? Why are you pater from chomesh in this case, right? Hoda achar edin lo. Why, if you admit that you lied and stole it after the witnesses come, are you pater from kefil? Michti hashvua lo k'mechayiv lekfela. The shvua itself is not mechayiv you kefil. Shvua because you're chayiv kefil from the edim to chayiv chumsha. Elalav shmam. You know what you see from this brayta is that it's the actual money. It's not the act of the shvua. It's the mamon in the stealing or the shomer or something. Hamechayiv kefil. That's where you're potrato min hachomesh shmamina. So you see that if you are responsible for paying kefil for an object, you never pay chomesh, even if it's from a different source. And again, the two cases we had is this random case of a guy in the street, or the case of a shomer where he lied twice or 5 times, right? And he swore twice. First, he swore that he didn't steal it, which would have been mechayiv in kefil. Then he swore that he lost it, right? Which would be mechayiv in chomesh. You don't pay a kefil and a chomesh. So we've proved it from there. You can sleep easily knowing the halacha. Okay. Boy, Ravina, we're going to get more complicated. So hopefully this is not, but stop me if anything, because I get messed up a little bit sometimes too. So stop me if anything is inconsistent. Boy, Ravina, we are around 15 lines from the top. Ask Ravina the following question. What about chomesh ukfela betray gavri? What if you have 2 people involved in this robbery, and one is required a chomesh and one is required a kefel? Do you do that? So do you say among 2 people you can have a chomesh and a kefel, or you say in any one instance, one stealing, you can only have one or the other, right? Only a kefel, not a chomesh. How in the world could you have 2 people? Ask the Gemara, Hechidami. Kegon shemasar shor l'shnei bnei adam. Let's say, just to get everything more complicated and fun, you give your cow, to be watched by 2 people, by Ruvain and Shimon. They both have joint responsibility. V'tanu bo tanat ganav. And at the end of the week, you go to pick up your cow, and the guys say, sorry, it was stolen. And you say, I don't trust you. What are you talking about? It was stolen. Prove to me it was stolen, meaning swear to me that it was stolen. Chad nishba v'hodeh. One swore, said it was stolen, and the next morning he woke up and said, I feel terribly guilty, and he comes and he admits I was lying. And that's the classic case in the Torah of a chomesh and an asher, right? You lied about something being stolen, you came the next day and admitted that you were lying, you got to bring the chomesh, you got to bring the asham, so that's one partner, right? But the other guy is more obstinate. Chad nishba, he swore that it was stolen, and he never admitted, ubo edim, and witnesses now came and said he's lying, and in fact it was never stolen, and it's sitting in his basement. Right? So now that person should pay a kefil. Of course, the Achronim go to town with this Gemara. This is one of these very, very famous sugyot about how in the world can you have 2 people? Like, what does it mean? You pay half a kefil, you pay full kefil? Like, what? How do you disentangle this interaction? And it's a lot of fun to discuss, but it's certainly not a Daf Yomi level issue. But the second one should be chayv kefil. So what do you say? Do you say, look, right? It's in one person where the Torah says you don't pay chomesh and kefil if you're paying kefil. But here, It's two people. So one of them should be Nishalim Kfela, perhaps on his half, behind Nishalim Chumsha, and the other one should pay a Chomesh on his half, right? So these basically, one of them admitted, so he pays a Chomesh. The other one is denied it, so he pays Kefel. Do you separate that? Odilma, or do you say, look, it doesn't matter, it's two people, it's one object, it's one instance. And Iluvei Chad Mimona Kapad Rachmana, one mammon, one monetary object is what the Torah said, Dilon Nishalim Allah Chumsha Kfela. And in fact, Teiko, we don't have a clear resolution to this question. So it's a fascinating discussion. Again, like I said, the question of what does that mean, two people on one object, and how do you pay half a kefel, and how do you pay half a chomesh is a thing that is debated very, very extensively and discussed.
Where's the cow? And two people, if the one stole it, says it didn't steal, and the other one said he didn't steal, where's the cow sitting now? It has to be
The
sitting
cow's in their house, right? The cow's in
what do
their
you mean their house? Is it they're two separate people, right? Or they live
yeah, but
together?
let's say they run a cow watching service together, so it's sitting in their warehouse, right? I mean, they're partners, so it's sitting in their reshut. So it's not one stole it from the other. That would obviously change it too. But they have it jointly. They both lied. They both swore falsely, but one admitted and one didn't. Tosfos, of course, points out, I think Tosfos points out here, but it goes without speaking throughout the whole sugya. Tosfos says that there is a debate earlier about if you admit and then witnesses come, right? If you're modeh biknas, edim, which seems to be the case here. Because the first partner said, I stole it, swore that I didn't steal it. I swore that it was stolen, and then admitted that he lied. And then the next day, witnesses came and said both of them are lying, right? So there was an opinion earlier that your admission no longer matters and you pay kefil regardless. But clearly, our Gemara is referring to the opinion that if you admit that you owe it, modeh biknas, v'achar kach bo edim, and then witnesses come and say that in fact you stole it or you didn't or you lied, you don't pay kefil. So the first one wouldn't pay kefil. The second one never admitted, so he would pay kefil. But again, how do you disentangle that? And that is an open question. It says we're on the second wide line, boy Rav Papa. It's asked Rav Papa, what about, can you pay kefil twice? Or can you pay chomesh twice for the same object, right? How would that be? Trei chumshi or trei kefeli b'chad gavramai. Can you pay, remember, you can't pay kefil and chomesh for one person. And we don't know about two people. What about two kefels or two chomshim or five kefels for one person with one object? Hechidami, kigon to ta'an tanat avad v'nishba, right? You go, you say it was lost. I can't give you back your cow. It's lost, and I swear that it was lost. And then the next morning you wake up, you say, you know what? I was lying. I really wanted to keep it. I had it the whole time. The hodeh, okay? But then the guy leaves it with you to watch for some reason. I don't know why. The chazar v'ta'an tanat avad. And the next day you come again to court and say, sorry, I can't give it back. It was lost. And you swear again. V'nishma, v'hodeh. You can do it 5-10 times. The question is, do you pay a chomesh and a carbon for each admission? Or do you say it's only one per object, right? That's, now remember, by saying it's lost is where you pay a chomesh. Inami, or the equivalent case of kefel, is where you say it was stolen, and you swear it was stolen, then you pay kefel. Kigon sheta'an tanat ganav v'nishba, and you swear, and then bo edim, then in fact you're lying. It wasn't stolen, it's sitting in your garage. And then you again, chazar v'ta'an tanat ganav v'nishba, and you swear a second time, ubo edim, they again say you were lying. So again, you should pay kefil for each of those instances. Mi amrina, do you say, trei gavni memona ka'amar achman de l'nishtalmi ilevei chad memona, right? That for two types of payments, chomesh and kefel, the Torah says you don't pay two types for one money, for one transaction. V'hacha, here, it's not two types of payment. Chad gavnu, it's one type of payment, meaning it's kefel or chomesh. Odilma is the Torah says you don't pay two types of fines. Two times. You don't pay two monetary fines for one monetary transaction. This would be two fines, kefil and kefil. So what's the halacha? Tashma, so he said, it's very simple. Because Rava said, and we've quoted this before, Dama Rava, the pasuk says, V'chamishitav Yosif alav. Right? It doesn't say chamishito, singular, it says plural. You pay the fifths on top of it. HaTorah ribta chamishiyot harbe the keren achat. The Torah is telling you sometimes do pay multiple chamishit, chomesh, for one principle. Shema mina, that in fact you do have to pay. And so you'd have to pay kefil many times. You'd have to pay chomesh many times in this case, but you never pay chomesh and kefil together. That's how we're concluding. And unless it's two people, in which case we don't know. Okay, so that is this case. Now we are around halfway through the wide lines, maybe 10 lines from the bottom. This is like bring your complicated cases day in the Gemara. So we get to the next complicated case. In this case, we're about to quote a Mishnah, which is very familiar to everyone who's learned Gemara in day school, because it's the third parak of Bava Metzia, which is a very commonly learned parak called Hamafkid, right? So the parent, and we're about to quote the first Mishnah of Hamafkid. So giving this, my kids are in the background. They're appreciating it. So in Hamafkid, we learned something very interesting. We're about to get to Daf Yomi in a few weeks, right? Which is that Ruvain goes to Shimon and says, "Can you please watch my cow for me?" Okay, Shimon's a shomer chinam, and Shimon says, "Sure, I'd be happy to do it." And the 30 days come. Ruvain comes back home. He says, "Where's my cow?" And Shimon says it was stolen. Okay, so now what happens? Shimon can either pay Ruvain because he was supposed to watch it, or he can swear that it was stolen and he'll be patur if he's a shomer chinam. A week later, you find the ganav. Okay, it was really stolen. He was telling the truth. The question is, who does the ganav pay? Right? So what the Mishnah explains in Bava Metzia is that if Shimon says, "I want nothing to do with this, I'm going to swear and be patur," then Ruvain is still the owner. And when you find the ganav, he pays Ruvain, right? But if Shimon says, "I will accept responsibility and I will pay you and not swear, even though I could have sworn and been patur," Shimon basically becomes the new owner of the object. And not only does he become the new owner, but that if you then find the ganav pays Shimon. And if it's kefel or 4 or 5, Shimon gets the extra money, right? So Shimon becomes in loco in presence of the owner because he paid. That's the Mishnah. The question is, we're about to get to in a second, is what if he did both? What if he swore and paid? What's the case? Ask the Gemara. Tav'u ba'alim l'shomer. The owner, Reuven, comes home and he says to Shimon, his shomer, "I'd like you to please return my cow," right? And Shimon says, "Sorry, it was stolen." V'nishma, swears. He says, "I have to pay you back because your cow was stolen." And he was telling the truth. But Shimon does not sleep well that night. He feels very guilty that he was supposed to watch this and it was stolen on his watch. And he wakes up the next morning and he goes to Reuven and he says, I'm sorry that I lost your animal, that I let it be stolen. Here's $500. Vishilam. He then pays, and he doesn't have to do that, but he does it out of the kindness of his heart. So the question we're about to ask, is he now the owner, or is he just a nice guy, right? Because then, hukara ganav, you find the ganav and you capture it. So kefel lemi, who gets the kefel, right? Obviously, the principle goes back to Shimon because he paid, right? But who gets the extra? So Abaye says, the Bala Pikadon, that the owner of the object, Ruvain, gets the kefel. He's the owner. Shimon made a shvua. It's very nice that he paid also, but he doesn't take over in place of Ruvain. And Rava says, no, the Misha Pikadon Etzlo, the one who took responsibility and paid for it, which is Shimon in this case, he gets the kefel. Why? Abaye Amar LeBala Pikadon, because look, sure, the Mishnah says that if Shimon doesn't make a shvua and pays, he becomes the new owner. But that's because he didn't require Reuven to bring him to court and make the shvua and go through the whole process. But here, Shimon didn't avoid that. Kivan, since he made him do all the work to make him make the shvua and go through court, lo makni like fela. He doesn't give over, Reuven, who's the original owner, doesn't give over the kefil. And Rava says, no. Lemisham bikadon etzlo. Kefil goes to Shimon, who now has the object, meaning has the responsibility. Kivan deshilam, because since he paid and made Ruvain whole, makni like fela. He got the right from Ruvain to keep the kefil or the 4 or 5, even if it's slaughtered, that would be paid. And in fact, they both are, the machloka is based on how you read this Mishnah. Become miflag b'diyuka de matnita, and it depends on how you read the Mishnah in Bava Metzia. It's not. Now we quote the famous Mishnah. Hamafkid etzel chavero behema okelim. If you give an animal or an object to your friend, Reuven gives to Shimon to watch, v'nignevu sha'avdu, and it is stolen or lost, so then Shimon has options. He can either swear and be patur, or he can pay. So if, says the Mishnah Shilam, let's say Shimon pays Reuven for the object, Below Ratzali Shavah, he doesn't want to make a shvua. Now he could have made a shvua, says the Mishnah. Shaharei Amru, he could have Shomer Chinam Nishba v'yotzei. A Shomer Chinam could have made a shvua and been potter, but he chooses not to make the shvua, right? He says, I'll pay you back. Then, says the Mishnah, Nimtza Ganav, 5 lines from the bottom. Once they find the robber, Mishalim Tashlim Kefal, you pay Kefal, the robber pays Kefal, and if he's he pays 4 or 5. Lemihu Mishalim, who does the Ganav pay? Is it Ruvain, the original owner, or Shimon the Shomer? The Misha Pikadon Etzlo. You pay Shimon, who basically was one given the Pikadon, the Shomer, who accepted responsibility and paid back when it was lost or stolen. But Nishba v'lo shalim, if let's say Shimon says, I don't want to pay back, I want to swear that it was stolen, then he's potter. But then if you're nimtzah ganav, mishalim tishlim kefal tavachim mishalim tishlim rabba chamisha, second line from the bottom, lemihu mishalim, the bal hapikadon, not to the shomer, but to the original owner. Because since the shomer absolved himself by swearing, it goes to the original owner. Now again, so basically the Mishnah made it a dichotomy. Either you swear and then you get all the profit, or you don't swear and you pay. Of course, in this case, you did both. You swore and then you paid. So each one is medayek from one case. So says the Gemara at the bottom, classic drasha, second line, sorry. Abaya daik miresha. Abaya is medayek is halacha from the resha, which says that you get it if you pay. Here you swore. And Rava medayek miseifa, where it says you keep it if you pay. Here you paid, right? The Resha says if you paid but didn't make a shvua, implying taima de lo ratzali shavah. It's because you didn't make the shvua. Turn the page, the daf kuf ched amud bet. Hanishba, if in this case, which what happened here, you made the shvua first. Alpha pisha shilam says Abaye, even if you subsequently paid, you still don't get to keep the kefil, right? It goes lemim mishalem. Who do you pay to? To the original owner, the bala pikadon. Rava says, I died miseifa. Because in the Seifa it says, what's the aleph here? It's Katani. It says in the Seifa, Nishpa, if you swear and you don't pay, v'lo ratzah l'shalem, then the kefil goes to the original owner. But that is taima de lo ratzah l'shalem. That's because you didn't pay at all. Here, remember, after he swore, he did pay. Hashilam, if you did pay, even if you first made the shvu, alpha bisha nishpa, you get it. Lemi mishalem, lemi shapika donetzlo. Says okay, well, each one has to deal with the other part of the mission, right? Labaya kashya seifa. Abaya, the reading in the seifa would be very difficult. Amar lecha Abaya, no, this is how I would read the seifa. Achi katani. Nishba, if you swear, below ratzal shalem kodem ashvua, you didn't want to pay up front. You only come to pay after the fact when you feel guilty, but you elal achar shvua. Then you don't keep it. Lemi mishalem lebala pikadon. And Rava Kasha Resha, Amar lecha Rava, Chikatani. This is again how I would read the Resha. Shilam, you paid, not, and you didn't want to make a shvua, because you did make a shvua, but it means lo ratzah la'amod b'shvuato. You didn't want to rely on your shvua. You made the shvua. You could walk off into the sunset, but you feel guilty, and you don't. And lifnim mishurat adin, you come to pay. Ella shilam, then lemi mishalim, lemi shapikadon etzlo. Then you get to keep the kefil. So that's the machloket Rav and Abaya about this complicated case where you both swear and you pay. Okay, so that is, again, not really terribly related to what we talked about before, but like I said, it is bring your complicated cases day. Continues the Gemara now 10 lines from the top.
But why would it not be in that? See, we learned earlier that if someone stole it, okay, 2 weeks ago maybe, that he in effect becomes the owner of it in some, but here the person paid for it. Why isn't he the owner? Why don't we consider him the new owner? And whether he swears or doesn't swear, he gets to keep it. He keeps the penalty.
Well, 1 second. So
it almost seem obvious.
What you said is true. If you steal it, you become owner for some aspects. But remember, here the robber's the third party. He's not even. That's not part of the discussion.
I understand that, but even almost like a kol v'chomer. It's not, I can't make my own kol v'chomer. But in this case, he paid him. He said, "Okay, it's mine." And yeah, so why wasn't it his? So he'd be entitled to the penalty from the robber. So when they find the robber,
I'll tell you why. It's like if I come to your house and give you $10,000, say now I own your car, right? So there's no necessary. I mean, it's not exactly the same, of course, but there's no responsibility to pay. You pay sort of out of the kindness of your heart. So you pay to assuage your guilt, not necessarily to become the object, because once you made the shvua, you basically absolved yourself of any responsibility. This is the shomer we're talking about. So the question is, this is machloket, Rava and Abaya, and we do pass something like Rava that, in fact, you get it, right? Which is what you're saying. But the Abaya's opinion is that you just did a kindness of your heart, but you didn't actually acquire the object. You just made yourself feel better. But let's see, we're going to get an even more complicated case here. Says the Gemara 10 lines from the top. Tavu ba'alim l'shomer. The owners come to the shomer and they say, where's our cow, right? Where's my cow? And the guy says, Benishba, he says, I'm sorry, it was stolen. And he swears, your cow was stolen, and the shomer is then patur. And the next day, right? So remember, what would happen here in theory is if you found the ganav would pay kefel to the owner, not to the shomer, because the shomer swore and got out of it. The next day, hukar haganav, the shomer, they recognize the ganav. They find out, oh, everyone knows Charlie, whatever, stole the thing. And we shouldn't use Charlie. He's part of our daf. Someone stole the thing. I got to pick a name. It's hard. Someone stole the thing. So tavu shomer. So the shomer, who's now got a bad reputation because he's supposed to be watching things, and instead he's getting them stolen. He goes over to the ganav. He says, "What? Did you steal this cow?" And he says, "Yep. Sorry, Hodu. I admit. I'm really sorry. I stole the cow. I'll pay it back." Okay. Then tavu balim. So then the owners, he calls up the owner and says, look, I found the guy who stole your cow. Come collect it right now. And the owners show up and the guy says, I don't know what you're talking about, the kafar. And he denies it. Okay. And then, so you have no leg to stand on. Then Hiviu Edim. Then witnesses come and say, oh yeah, we saw this guy steal it. So now, if Edim had come without him admitting or denying it, he would pay kefil like any other ganav. But if you admit something and then Edim come, then you're putter from kefil because you're modeh first, right? You don't pay kefil. So the question is the shomer still party to this whole business or not? Or do you say, once the shomer makes his shvua, he's no longer part of the discussion, which is similar to Rav and Abaya's question. Now, what happens if the shomer then pays after he makes his shvua? So does the admission to the shomer mean anything? Let me read that inside. Min niftar haganav b'hodat shomer, is the ganav putter from kefel by admitting to the shomer, although niftar haganav b'hodat shomer. So says Rava, you know what? It's really interesting, but it depends on whether he's still a shomer or not. Because this is how Rashi understands this. Rashi has two pshatim, but he likes this one much more. But the question is, if I give something to Shimon to watch for me, and then Shimon comes and says, I'm really sorry it was stolen. If you subsequently find the object, this is how Rashi understands the whole sugya, Shimon would become the shomer once again, meaning I didn't absolve Shimon of his shmirah. He just can't watch it while it's stolen. But if Shimon is a reliable guy, then and the object is then found, I want Shimon to take it back and basically to still be a shomer. So then Shimon is still a party to the whole business. So let's read that inside. It says Rava, in the emet nishba, when Shimon swore that it was stolen, he was telling the truth, then Reuven likes Shimon still, and he remains the shomer. And niftar ganav hodat shomer. And then by the ganav admitting to the shomer that he took it, he's admitting to an owner or a responsible party that he took it. But in b'sheker nishba, let's say Shimon lied. Shimon said, you know what? I don't have your shar because it was struck by lightning. And the real truth is he doesn't have the shar because Levi stole it, right? Then Shimon is basically removed from the shomer responsibility. And later, if the ganav admits to Shimon, it doesn't mean anything. Then lo niftar ganav bodat shomer. So that was what Rava answered. That do you, and this again gets to this question of if you're a shomer and you then swear that it was stolen and you absolved yourself of any responsibility, are you actually absolved from all responsibility? Or are you still a shomer in loca, waiting for it to come back? So that was what Rava said. Now, boy, Rava asked another question. Amad lishava b'sheker v'lohanichu mao. Let's say the shomer wanted to swear falsely, right? Meaning the shomer said, I can't give you back your shore because on Tuesday, these crazy band of marauders came and stole it. And I'll swear to that. And the owner says, don't swear. I trust you. I don't need you to pay. And then it turns out that he was lying, that in fact it was stolen by Levi. He knows it was stolen by Levi. Does he lose his role as a shomer, even because he was going to tell a lie, but he didn't tell a lie, basically? So that's Teku. He doesn't know. Rav Kahana, in fact, learns it completely differently. And Matni Hachi, Rav Kahana learned it this way, Matni Hachi. Rav Tavyumi Matni Hachi, Rav Tavyumi learned this whole Gemara differently, that boy, Rava's question was, no, if in fact he did lie, Nishbal Sheker Mahu Teku, then in fact, if the Shomer did lie, does that mean you don't want him to be Shomer anymore or not? And we don't resolve that question. So he actually, we assumed that in fact, if he lied, you wouldn't want him to be a shomer, but if Tafumi said it was still an open question.
So what is what's the status with the ganav, the real ganav? He doesn't pay to whom, or he doesn't.
The real ganav definitely has to pay. He pays in this case the original owner because he's the only one who has money involved in this. The question is, does the ganav pay kefel or not? Right? And the reason this is a question is that there's a unique halacha that if a person admits that they did something wrong and then witnesses come and say prove it, you don't pay kefil. So the only question here is, does admitting it to the shomer mean that you admitted it to a party who's I wouldn't say an owner, but a responsible party for this animal? And that's the question, right? When a shomer makes a shvuah that basically absolves them of responsibility, does that also absolve them of connection to the case? And therefore, if you admit to them, it's like admitting to your friend, sitting next to you on the subway, which has no implication, or not? That's the question.
Well, if it says lo niftar ganav meodat shomer, the ganav is still
Not patur of kefel by admitting to the shomer, because it means that when he admits to the shomer, he's admitting it to a third party base, to an unrelated party. Because it's only if you admit it to the owner that you're patur from kefil. Or if the shomer is still a shomer, because even though he doesn't have the animal because it's stolen, the owner wants him to watch it again once it's back, then he would be niftar ganav behodat shomer. He'd be patur from kefil. Just to be clear, he never is patur from the principal. You got to pay back what you stole, but he'd be patur from kefil. As the Gemara, the next question, they're getting a little more complicated. Tav'u ba'alim l'shomer. Let's say the owners go to the shomer and say, "Where's my cow?" And they say it was stolen. And the shilam, but the shomer doesn't make a shvua. He pays. Okay, he doesn't have to pay, but he pays. So usually, remember in this case, the shomer takes over the ownership, and if there's kefel, it goes to the shomer. But of course, what happened here was Hukar Ganav, they found out who stole it, and Tavu Balim, and the original owners went to Ganav and said, "How did you steal my cow?" And he says, "Or did you steal my cow?" And he says, "Yeah, I did, Hodeh." And then Tavu Shomer, Vikafar. But then the Shomer goes and he lies to the Shomer. Now remember, the Shomer is really the owner now because he paid. The Hevi Edim, and they bring witnesses that say he stole it, so he should pay kefel. The question is, did his admission to the original owner pater him from kefel? So Niftar Ganav Hodat Baalim, is the ganav pater from kefel because he admitted to the owner that he stole it? Oh, lo. Mi amrina, do you say? Matzi amale shomer lebal. The shomer to the original owners, look, Aton, you, kivan the shaklitu lechudme, since you took my money, istaliktu lechumehacha. You are no longer a party to this. Once you take my money, it's my cow. And once it's found, they owe it to me. And any admission to you is meaningless. Odilma matzi amrale, he could say to the owners can say, look, it looks bad for us too that people are stealing from us, right? Yehecha da'at avdetlan milta ananami avdina lecha tarchina batar ganva, right? Since you did us a favor, we know you're a shomer. You don't have to pay me. You're a nice guy. You have great service and you paid us. We feel a moral and ethical responsibility to help you find this cow. So we still have a response because we're the original owners and we benefited from that. So Anan, I'll read inside. We nami avdinan lecha tarchinan bater ganva, right? And we also are basically responsible. We have a moral and maybe legal responsibility to help you find the ganav, right? Shakana anan didan v'shcho atidach teko. So we are doing our responsibility, and therefore we actually are still connected to the case, and that is a take about whether the original owners are still connected. Obviously, a third party has nothing to do with it. But in this case, again, and this all revolves around these complicated question of what is the status of a shomer who swears or pays? Does that break the relationship, or is there a continued relationship because there's mutual acceptance of responsibility to each other and the way people react? And that is the take.
It seems like you're saying the shomer acquired it, but a few minutes ago, I thought you were saying that just the shomer says, "I'm giving you $10,000. I want your car." It doesn't transact. The shomer doesn't acquire it. Does not. Now we're seeming to say he does acquire.
Again, so each case is very complex. So just to clarify, the earlier case we had was where the shomer first swore and said, it was stolen, and he's not paying. And the next morning he woke up and said, "I feel bad. I want to give you $10,000 for this thing." And that was the debate between Abaye and Rava about whether the shomer acquires it or not. In this case, there's no question about it. There's no two steps. In this case, the shomer paid up. And so the shomer definitely acquires it, and he definitely gets the kefir. The question is, do the original owners still have some say in this transaction? Because in some ways they're indebted to the shomer to help find this cow to get him back the money that he paid them. And the question is, does that indebtedness make them partial owners or not partial owners? So again, the cases are different, and each one has its own details. This final one for today, which is around 15 lines before the Mishnah, Itmar. What about the following case? And again, this is very, very technical. I'm going to give you Rashi's pshat in this case, even though others disagree with it. Nignava be'onis. Let's say an animal is stolen through force. Now remember, a shomer chinam is patur for any geneva that happens, as long as they're not poshea, as long as they're not negligent. A shomer sachar is not patur for geneva. If I'm paying you $100 to watch my cow, then you have to stop robbers from taking it. That's your responsibility, right? But you're patur if they're armed robbers. They're called listim mizuyim, right? If they're robbers who have guns, then you don't have to put your life at risk to save it. So that's even a shomer sachar. A shomer is being paid, which Rashi says is what we're referring to here, would be patur if there are listim mizuyim, if they are armed robbers. So that's the case here. Itmar, nigneva be'ones, okay? It was stolen through onus. And then hukar haganav. Then they identified these robbers. They brought them to court. And Amar Abai, now says Abai, the following is nalacha. Im shomer chinamhu. If a person is a shomer chinam, then they have options. They can swear and be patur, or they can pay. So Ratza Osei Imodin, Ratza Nishba. The Shomer Chinam has options here. This is the way Rashi understands what this means, is that either the Shomer Chinam can go to the original owner and say, look, we know who stole it. I'll pay you the $1,000 for the cow, and I'll go and deal with the robber. Now, it's no fun to deal with robbers, right? Because they hide their money and they might be difficult to deal with. But I'm the Shomer, and I accepted to watch it. I will now pay you, and I'll deal with them. That's what Osei Modin means. I'll deal with the robber. Or he's a Shomer Chinam, so he can say, you know what? I'll swear that it was stolen, which we all know is true now because we even know who the robber is, and I don't have anything more to do with you. So a Shomer Chinam can swear and get out of the case. Why is that an innovation? Because look at the next words, right? Im Shomer Sacharhu, but if he's a Shomer Sachar, he does not have the option of swearing. He has to pay. Who im shomer sacharhu oseh imodin ve'eno nishba. The shomer sachar has to deal with the ganav, and he has to pay the original owner the cost of it and get the money back from the ganav. Rava says, no, I don't agree with that. Neither one can swear, because the whole concept of swearing is when you don't know what happened. Once you know what happened, if you're a shomer, that's part of your responsibility. You watch this object. If it's stolen and you know who stole it, you go and track it down. You can't swear if it's not known. If you don't know who stole it, you can swear and then you patur. But once you know, you have to deal with that person. And that's a responsibility of a shomer. And that argues pliga adrafuna bar avin. Adrafuna bar avin. Ask the Gemara. Lema pliga adrafuna bar avin. The shalach Rafuna bar avin. Rafuna bar avin sent the following a message, dictate, right? The following halacha. Nignava ba'onis. If an object is stolen through force, and then you recognize the armed robbers who did it. Im shomer chinamhu, then you have a choice. Ratza osei modin. If you want, you can either go and pay the money and deal with the robbers, or ratza nishba, or you can swear that it was stolen in your patur. Im shomer sacharu, you have to do din. Osei modin ve'no nishba. And Rava just said that by both shomer sachar and shomer chinam, you can't make a shvua, right? Amar lecha Rava, no, says Rava, this is talking about a case. This case of Rav Huna bar Avin was where you first made a shvua. Either case, that it was stolen. The question is, now we found out who stole it. Did your shvua, again, this is why it relates to all these questions from today, did your shvua get you off the case? You are unrelated, or are you still a shomer who made a shvua? And once we find out who stole it, part of your shmirah is going down and tracking down the ganav, right? It's fascinating. That's why it can't be where you swore, because it says if you want to, you can make a shvuah, implying you didn't make a shvuah yet. Haratzah osei modin ratzah nishba kamar. No. This is what Ravin meant. This is what Rav Huna bar Avin meant. Hachi kamar. Ratzah, if you want, and you're a shomer chinam, and you already made a shvua, you can rely on that shvua and say, I'm done here. Stop calling me, right? Omeid b'shvuato. You can stand with your shvua and be out of the case. But Ratzah, if you want, you can be a nice guy and say, forget about my shvua, I'll pay you the $1,000 and I'll go deal with the ganav. Osei imodin, right? Rabazuti boile hachi. Rabazuti asked a similar case, and again, this is one last case before the Mishnah. I know these are very complicated, but we've done a great job, I
But
think.
that's only with the Shomer Chinam, right? That we just talked about.
Correct. It's only a shomer chinam, but a shomer sachar, again, would have been putter if they never found the ganav. But once they find the ganav, part of his shmirah is tracking down the ganav. And so this, again, gives more insight into the challenge here, which is that even though you're a shomer and you basically got rid of your court case, it didn't stop your shmirah. Because if you subsequently find the ganav, if you're a shomer sachar, everybody agrees that part of the fact that you were paid is that if it gets stolen, you don't have to give up your life, right? You don't have to put yourself in front of the bullet. But once they track that person down, you have to go collect from that person. The question is, does that apply to Shomer Chinam as well? Rava says it does, right? And that's very interesting. But the question here is, what if you made the shvua before they found the ganav? And that's where you don't have to take care of it. The final case today is Rabba Zuti Ba'ilei Hach. Rabba Zuti asked the following question. What if it was Nignava Ba'ones? Okay. The armed robbers came and they stole the cow at gunpoint. Shomer Sachar, Shomer Chinam doesn't really matter, to be honest. And then overnight, they had guilt and they brought it back. So by the next morning, the cow is still in your yard, right? But the question is, are you still a shomer or not? And this again relates to all the same question. Are you a shomer because it's back in your possession? Or do you say, once it was stolen from me in a format that I wasn't supposed to protect it from, I'm done, right? And the question, of course, implies, what if the next morning it gets stolen again, but this time you were poshea, you left the gate open, you fell asleep, right? A shomer is chayav for pshia, but are you a shomer or not? So ask Rabbi Zuti, let's say the case is the third to last narrow line, Nigneva ba'ones, it was stolen through force. The chsira ganav bebeit shomer. The ganav brought it back, but he didn't bring it back to the original owner. He brought it back to the shomer. And then the shomer was like, I'm done with this. I'm not even locking the door. Umeta b'pshia. The animal died. Let's say you left it in the sun, right? You didn't take it in a pshia, in a negligent way. Mahu. Mi amrina, do you say, kiva denignava ba'ones. Once it was stolen through force, and that is something I don't have to protect against, kal yalei shmirato, the shmira, the responsibility of shmira is done, right? Remember, Rava said maybe the responsibility to pay is done, but is the responsibility of shmira done, and therefore you don't have to pay anything. Odilma kivan dehadra l'shmirato. Once he put it back, God bless you, it went back to your responsibility to watch it. Teiko, we do not have a resolution of this case, and so this brings out one of the complex questions that we really dealt with throughout the daf today, which is what's the interplay between a shomer's patur from paying because it was stolen or patur because it was lost and their status as a shomer. And we saw many, many applications of that, right? Both in terms of who pays the kefel, who it's paid to, but also in this last case, whether you have continued responsibility for shmira.
Does it matter if there's a chinam or sachar here?
So it's a really good question. According to Rashi, it does not seem to matter. The other Rishonim disagree, but Rashi implies that since we're talking about an armed robber here, right, that's partly, which would be true about a Shomer Sachar as well, that wouldn't matter either way. But that's not so simple. It's a very good detail that we have to figure out. So Shakoch, everyone. I know it's a tough, long daf, complicated, but hopefully Dov tomorrow morning will pick up at the Mishnah. It's not going to get that much easier, but we'll get there. Okay, everyone. Have a great week. Shavua tov.
Thank you. Shavua tov.
So,
Shavua tov.
so